Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Iraq, Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 through 10, exegesis. Nimrod, the first earthly king to an extent. The name Nimrod literally means let us rebel, which was a part of his kingdom Babylon, the gate of heaven, reaching the gate of the gods. He is the first man in scripture described as a mighty one on the earth. In the actual Hebrew, it's a mighty one in opposition or against Yahweh, a title originally used for the Nephilim before the flood. So now you see how the spirit of the Nephilim is carried on or transitioned or continued in Nimrod, because it's the same word, the same term that is used. A great hunter, a mighty one on the earth against or in opposition of Yahweh. This suggests that Nimrod carried the same spirit of rebellion and defiance against Yahweh that existed before the deluge, or in the antediluvian world before the flood. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Genesis chapter 10, verses 9. This phrase doesn't honor him. Rather, it implies defiance. The Hebrew expression before the Lord can mean in opposition to the Lord. Thus, Nimrod wasn't just a physical hunter. He was a hunter of men's souls. So it was more in the spiritual aspect as opposed to the physical, drawing humanity under his dominion and away from divine authority. That was the purpose of Babel, which is why Yahweh had to come down and confuse the language, because it was a political and an ecclesiastical system, a church and state power in opposition of Yahweh, according to the traditions of man, in opposition to the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, which is a consistent phrase, a consistent text in the story of Noah in Genesis, in the book of Genesis, period. So the Nimrod wasn't just a physical hunter, he was a hunter of men's souls. He became the first king of the earth, introducing governmental power, united with false worship, a pattern that defines every Babylonian system thereafter. Every Babylonian system. So we see how this is the fundamental principle and setting up the foundation of all of the systems that would come after it. So beginning in Babylon, next in Medo-Persia, next in Greece, next in Rome, then pagan Rome, then papal Rome, and then in the United States of America. So you see how this is setting up the foundation upon which this doctrine would indoctrinate the masses, but beginning in Babylon. So this is just setting the foundation, the story of Nimrod. The beginning of his kingdom, Babel and the land of Shinar. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Iraq, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Genesis chapter 10, verses 10. So the land of Shinar represents Babylon. Babel, the root of Babylon, meaning confusion. That's what babies do. They cry. They're confused. They babble. That's where we get our term, or that's the etymology of the word Babylon, to be confused, to cry, to be in disarray, to be in chaos. It was the center of human rebellion and the origin of false religion. So where humanity sought unity apart from Yahweh. So that was the point, to escape the wrath of Yahweh, which could destroy the world with a flood. Even though he gave them the promise that he would never do that again, they still chose to adhere to the traditions of men, which is setting up the foundations of righteousness by works, which is what is taught by mainstream Christianity, even in Catholicism today. So once again, we see how this is setting up the foundation of all that which would be thereafter, that would come thereafter, in reference to the doctrine, the false doctrine of Babylon. The root of Babylon meaning confusion. It was a center of human rebellion and the origin of false worship. So Iraq, which was also another city derived from this genealogy or this lineage, the lineage of Ham, a city dedicated to the worship of the goddess Ishtar, symbolizing moral corruption and idolatry, which is where we get our Easter from. So you see how really all of this is setting up the foundation for pretty much everything that is modern and that is mainstream. And then you have Akkad, a political center representing the rise of centralized power and control. And then you have Calneh, possibly meaning fortress of the god, reflecting religious arrogance. So this is the foundation of the gods Marduk, the gods Ishtar, the gods Molech, the gods Ra, the gods Isis, the gods Horus, the gods Set, which are still the gods worshipped in the United States of America. They are just hidden under Christianity, under the cloak of Christianity. Therefore, mainstream media, mainstream people, the masses cannot see because of the symbolism that is hidden therein. All they see is the external exemplification of these figures, which is the figures of Christianity, which is what Constantine did when he mixed these religions. So you could say Constantine is a type of Nimrod because they did essentially the same thing under the name of Yahweh, which is actually blasphemy. So Nimrod's empire combines civil authority and spiritual deception, the same two elements that form the foundation of the final Babylonian system, which we just talked about, which is in Revelation chapter 13. Revelation 13, 1 through 10, talking about that Roman power. Revelation 13, verses 11 through 18, talking about the United States. You have church, and then you have state, talking about these two powers. So the prophetic insight. Nimrod's kingdom foreshadows the modern Babylonian system, a union of church and state, religion and politics aimed at a global dominion. So once again, Revelation chapter 14, verse 8, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The wine, remember, is a symbolic representation for doctrine. So this is the doctrine that has been indoctrinating the masses universally, every kindred, every tongue, every nation, every people, which is what the story, the message of Revelation 14, the gospel says. Fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and the fountains of water. The message that is taken to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. Why? Because Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the false doctrines of her fornication. Revelation 14:18, which is also why Yeshua says, come out of her, my people. So just as Nimrod established Babel to unite mankind in defiance of heaven, the end time powers symbolized by the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet will unite to form a one world order. This confederacy seeks to enforce Sunday worship, a man-made ordinance in place of the true Sabbath of the Creator. It's always been either the traditions of man or the commandments of Yahweh. Remember, those who keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus. So this Babylonian system would seek to counteract that, seeks to enforce Sunday worship. And remember, this is setting up the foundation of it. So you see how these false gods that were worshipped are now the gods that are subtly indoctrinated into Christianity. So false worship Sunday worship would be a doctrine that was taught based upon this foundation, which we're not going to get into now because that's the story of Nimrod and his mom Semiramis and them having a son together, Tammuz, and them vulnerating it to being the vulnerable day of the sun, which is the same doctrine that is taught within Christianity. It's just under the cloak of Christian doctrine, so you can't see it. Only the elite know, or the quote unquote. So let's end up with a message of hope. So once again, Nimrod stands as a prototype of the Antichrist, the human face of rebellion performed by Satan himself. I just wanted to make sure we got that covered. So message of hope. Though Babel rose in defiance, Yahweh's kingdom will prevail. Remember, Genesis chapter 11, verse 5. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. The same way Yahweh confused Babylon the first time, the same way he can confuse it again in the end time before Yeshua's return. So he confused their language, scattering them to prevent universal apostasy. Likewise, in the last days, Yahweh will confound the plans of Babylon once more, bringing her to ruin. Remember, Revelation chapter 18, verse 10 says, in 1 hour your judgment has come, referring to Babylon. Those who stand with Christ, the true King, will not be deceived by Babylon's unity. The faithful remnant, the faithful loipos, will shine as lights amid the confusion of a fallen world, proclaiming, Revelation 14, verse 7, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters. This was Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 through 10, exegesis.